What's up, boys? Welcome back to another episode of RanWhenParked. Now, I had a whole episode planned today where we were going to work on the Honey Badger. The whole rear end's blown up. I got to rebuild it. It's got a fuel tank that's half full of water. It needs another new starter, which I don't understand why. I was going to put airbags in the back because when I tow with it, it sags all the way to the ground. But guess what? We're not going to do any of that stuff today because I woke up this morning and decided that what I really want to do is take my RX7 FD for a rip on the road. I know I talked about this thing in the first episode, but for those that didn't watch it, or for those that don't remember, this is a 93 RX7 FD. I've had this thing for about 10 years or something. I got it in my early 20s while I was in college, and I got it as a stripped out rolling chassis. I put a 6-liter iron block in it, which is completely beat to death junkyard motor. I built a 7875 front mount turbo system, which is down there. It has a Holley Dominator ECU. Factory rear end, T56. It's got all the good stuff. It's a pretty cool car. Initially, when it had the NA motor in it, just no turbo system, it was running and driving on a factory, GM, PCM and stuff, and everything was good. It was pretty cool, fun to drive. And then I started building the turbo system, and essentially it's been a garage queen ever since then. So it's got some miles on it. I've driven it. It's insured and stuff, but it's just never been quite right. It's always had some sort of little problem. And in case you guys haven't noticed, I bounce around between these projects like a ping pong ball. I basically have the attention span of a mosquito. So this thing's just been sitting here for like a year, maybe, except when I'm pulling it out of the garage to clean or bring something else in to work on it. But I woke up this morning and decided today's the day. I'm going to get it running for you guys. We're going to go rip it around on the roads, and I'm going to remind myself how sick this thing is. And the reason why is because I'm actually in the process of building a new engine for it right now. Like I said, this is just a like 150,000 mile junkyard motor. So I have an aluminum block engine that's being built and is going to go in this thing. It's going to be sick then, but, well, for lack of a better phrasing, the worst thing you want to do is prove out your system on the dyno. So I want to take it out on the roads and make sure there's just nothing really wrong with it. It doesn't do anything stupid before I put it on the dyno and have it tuned. Because right now this thing is tuned by me, and it runs, and it's pretty safe, but obviously, it's not anywhere close to what a real tuner could do. So really, it doesn't really need much, but one thing I know it needs is that right now it's pulling a bunch of idle air control at idle. It's like 40%. For those of you that know, it should be like 5% maybe on an LS, something like that. Even 8% is probably fine, but 40% is off the charts. So that's usually an easy fix. You just move the throttle screw there, and you take more air through the blades and less air through the idle air control valve. But mine is stuck, and in fact, the other day I tried to loosen it a little bit, and I broke a Torx bit trying to loosen it. So first things first, we're going to yank that off, and then I'm going to put it on the bench and probably weld a nut to the bottom of it so I can make that adjustment easier. We'll get the idle air control dialed in. We'll check the coolant, check the oil, because I think I mentioned in the first video, this thing actually pushes coolant on the passenger side bank. And then we're going to take it for a rip and see what happens. I don't know, maybe we'll blow it up. Not the end of the world. Or maybe we'll just have some fun and bring it back and park it in the shop for another year before I do anything with it. Whatever happens, stick with me for a little while because we're going to have some fun today. Alright guys, so the nut method did not work, which I'm kind of surprised about because it's a tiny little screw and I usually have good luck with that method. I've used it a bunch of different times, but it did not work today. It actually just snapped the nut off, so that thing is really stuck in there. So I'm going to do the next best thing. I'm going to put it back together, and then I'm just going to use some shims under it, and that works for two reasons. One, it'll solve the problem long enough so I can drive this thing around a little bit and see if I have any other problems. And also it'll prove whether or not that's really the problem. So I should be able to see the effect, and it'll last while I'm driving it, so everything will be perfectly fine. And then I'll probably just switch out this throttle body. I have another one upstairs, I think. So I'll probably just go get that one and modify it a little bit. This thing's modified to clear the hood. So we're going to put this back together, and I'll get it running, and we'll see where we're at then. Alright boys, so the next step is pretty simple as far as the idle air control problem. The first thing you do is, generally speaking, the more the throttle's open at idle, the less idle air control is going to be required. So you take a small shim, cardboard or something, and hold it open. I would suggest not starting with more than like 2% throttle position sensor. So you hold it open a little bit, you come over to the laptop, and in the laptop is where you're going to want to set your idle air control already. So once you have your idle air control already set up, then you can shim open your throttle blade, and then you do a TPS auto set, so it calls that 0 again. And then you're just going to want to start the car up and check what the idle air position is down in that bottom corner. Again, you really want it to be something along the lines of 5 to 8%, something like that. So there's going to be some back and forth here, you know. If I shim it open a little bit and I try it again, it's not 30, but it's 18. I'm going to want to go more. If it goes down to 0, I'm going to want to go a little bit less. So I'm going to start doing that back and forth right now, and we're going to see if we can get this thing dialed in before we take it out on the road. Alright guys, so I got this thing pretty well dialed in. The idle air control percentage is somewhere between like 1 and 5% at hot idle, which is pretty good. Makes me happy. It idles smooth, everything's good. I came across another problem though, and that is that the air-fuel ratio is not stable at all. It's pretty lean at idle, like 17 to 1 even, and when you rev it, it waves around all over the place. So I checked the fuel pressure's fine. Checked the pump, it's fine, nothing's clogged, it's getting fuel. I changed out the O2 sensor to one of my spare ones, and now it's perfectly fine too. So most people in this situation would probably can this episode and not go and drive this thing because, you know, we might barbecue a piston the second we get out there. But that's not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shut off closed loop. I'm going to add 5% fuel all across the board where we're actually going to get into any boost. And then I'm going to take it out on some back roads near my house, and we're going to let freedom ring. And either it's going to blow apart, or I'm just going to bring it home and it's going to go back in the shop. So let's go see what happens now. got some problems here. Car's full of smoke. I'm not really sure what's going on, but we're just gonna limp it back to the house, and hopefully we live to fight another day here. It's a little bit of a trip still, so maybe we won't live to fight another day. I guess this is the risk you take though with a project like this, right? All right, guys, so I'm back in my shop. The RX-7's behind me. We both survived. It didn't burn to the ground. So I wasn't really sure, you know, you saw what happened there. I mean, the thing was popping and sputtering. The air-fuel ratios were all over the place. The car filled with smoke. When I got back, I didn't really know why that was happening, but I looked at the data logs, and I think what's going on is that engine is just even more trashed than I thought it was. I mean, I knew it was leaking oil. I knew it would lifted ahead and was burning coolant. But I thought it would still kind of have a little left into it. And honestly, part of me just wanted to take it out and blow it up for you guys because I do have another engine. But I looked at the data logs and I found that essentially right when it's getting into the boost, it had some crazy things happening that I couldn't really put my finger on. But then I started it back up, let it warm up, and I put a thermometer on the manifolds and I found that it didn't have one dead cylinder, it had 2 dead cylinders. So we were just out there running around on 6 cylinders. And when you're doing that, that's kind of why, you know, when I first started going up the street, it ran perfect. It sounded good. You could hear the turbo spooling up. Everything was mint. But then the second you put your foot into it and you build any sort of pressure, then, you know, those 2 chambers go dead because the gasket's probably blown. I mean, I already said it lifted ahead. I knew it was pushing water. So at that point, you're burning oil, you're burning coolant, you're just pumping fuel down into the exhaust, and that's why the car just filled with smoke and was popping and sputtering and backfiring and all kinds of stuff. But today was a success, I think, because I reminded myself why I built this car. This thing is like a go-kart. I mean, I'm 6'2". When I got it, I didn't even fit in it. And I modified everything to get myself in it. So now I sit in this thing, I'm driving it around. It's like putting on a fitted suit. Like, I love this thing. So I'm going to get back to this other engine. I got an aluminum 5.3 that's going to be like a mild build. 1/2-inch head studs, some head work, you know, ring gaps, things like that. It's going to be pretty sweet. So maybe I'll do a video on building that. I will definitely do a video on putting it in because we're going to do some other things like a new intake. I got to modify the firewall. I got to do a bunch of stuff that you guys will probably find interesting. And then I will definitely do a video of it on the dyno. And then after that, once we have it dialed in, maybe we'll take it over to the drag strip one night or something and we'll see what it can do. So hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell because I got a ton of stuff coming your way. And I'll see you guys on the next RanWhenParked.